You know, I think I'm being more and more convinced that the fact that Mark might just be a Spider-Man variant or something like that, because this guy just can't catch a break. No matter what episode we're in on, this guy is getting his shit rocked. And more importantly, this always seems to happen at the season finale, because this time around, Conquest was an absolute menace. I mean, I wasn't expecting a retread of episode 1 with Mark's face being used as a weapon to decimate innocent people, but my God, that still hits the second time around. I don't care who you are. Whoever it was in the casting department that got Jeffrey D. Morgan to play Conquest is a godsend. That guy is fantastic because we got a retread of Glen versus Negan 2.0 right over here, and we got a reversal of that situation with the other guy's head being squished in. Absolutely phenomenal work with the season finale over here, and I have absolutely no idea how other reviewers like IGN are able to give season 3 a 4 out of 10. It's like we didn't even watch the same show. I mean, do they see all the character development and all the building that we got with Mark and his family over here? I mean, at this point, I don't even know. IGN, what are you actually up to? But yeah, I'm Randy, and I wanted to talk to you guys about why I think Season 3 is a special show in terms of what it's doing with its characters, its world building, and how it pushes everything to a point that no other superhero series or movie has really done. They do great work over here, and I'm gonna be one of the defenders that say that the animation, I mean, it makes sense why it is the way that it is. They save their budget on big name voice actors. We love it when we get special celebrity voice actors like Conquest with Jeffrey D. Morgan or Powerplex with Aaron Paul. I mean, it makes sense why they would reserve some of the budget for big names like that. I mean, I'm not gonna say that I'm not aware about the fact that people say that the artwork looks like it's just PNGs moving from one corner of the screen to the other at times. I mean, that's a really real fact, but it looks like they saved the majority of their budget for the season finales because they always nail the landing. I mean, look at the physics on Mark's hair over here. That's the comic accurate look right there. If you're telling me that every single season's gonna have a final episode that looks so gorgeous that I'm not gonna care about the ones that came before, I mean, I'll take it. The series does good work. That final fight sequence was astonishing to see. But the series isn't all just fights. I mean, what this series does with its characters, with the family dynamic of the Grayson household, is also something that is really, really remarkable. Let's talk about the fact that Mark, this entire season, has been dealing with a lot of ethical questions. Where we left off in season 2, Mark is led to believe that he just brutally murdered Angstrom, something that we see to be completely dead wrong, and it leads us straight into the Invincible War. But before that, he thought that he actually crossed that line, and he's been forced to do it again and again throughout all of season 3. And when he's confronted by someone like Oliver, someone who isn't even human, remember that. I mean, this guy's just bug and Viltrumite. There's nothing human in between. He's even questioned even more because this kid is growing up to be a little bit demented. I mean, what he did with the Mahler twins is something so dark and sinister that not even the immortal could like stand up to him. That guy just muttering in the corner because he's probably the most powerless out of everyone here. I mean, when you get the Mahler twins begging for their life and this kid just comes in and just dishes out his own brand of justice, that's just so cold. This kid could grow up to be a real piece of work. And we see that he does this because he idolizes Nolan so much, Omni-Man. And Mark has to think about whether killing is something that he wants to implement into his style of crime fight. I mean, honestly, with all the stress in the lives of the Graysons right now, Debbie is the rock of the family. I mean, she's the one that keeps control of everyone. Without her, Omni-Man would have probably taken control of Earth decades ago. So it's a good thing that she's still around. And you know, Paul over there, he's doing great work. Keep doing you, Paul. But Mark and Oliver aren't the only two people that are butting heads because we got Cecil and Mark over here as well, completely talking about different ways to use and, you know, keep prisoners captive. Cecil is a guy that likes to reform criminals and use their powers for the greater good, you know, to protect the entire world at large, while Mark is someone that would rather see a criminal just rot in a cell, which leads to a pretty interesting question. What's better there, to reform someone or let them be and just let them die? Mark sees Cecil's view as an abomination of sorts. I mean, come on, he's using the same villains that have hurt Mark's friends to help out in saving them. Of course, that's gonna rub Mark the wrong way, especially when he thought that they were already dealt with. But I mean, I gotta be honest, I think I'm on Cecil's side. Right now, he hasn't shown me any reason as to why I wouldn't want to have, you know, like reanimated corpses fighting on my side. Who knows? I haven't read the comic book past this point because I don't want to know more spoilers. But yeah, I don't know. I've been siding with Cecil a lot more this season. He seems like a big voice of reason, especially after allowing Mark time after time to continuously, you know, work with everyone. At first, we side with Mark because why wouldn't Cecil want to trust Invincible after everything that they've gone through? But now, after the Invincible War, where like 18 different Invincibles from different universes that Angstrom was able to pull through just completely destroyed the Earth. Yeah, it makes sense as to why you're gonna have some sort of counter plan to this. That's Batman's #1 rule right there. Have a contingency plan for absolutely everything. I mean, it's easier to handle things that way. And just outside the Grayson family over here, we've got all these relationships that are finally blooming. Mark and Eve finally got together. I mean, that's something that we've been all waiting on. But then we got another pairing that I was not expecting with Ray and Rex. These two over here, the second that they started to get together, I knew that this wasn't gonna end well because Rex's entire character seems to have been at least a little bit revamped. I mean, this guy is so much cooler than when we first met him in season 1. This guy's gone through a complete transformation in terms of what it means to be a hero, what it means to be his own individual. And he's actually gone to recognize pretty much all of his faults as a human being. This guy has changed, and he's changed for the absolute better. We wanted to see this progression of Ray and Rex because they're two people that underwent the same kind of trauma, fighting the Lizard League and almost losing their lives. It was a good move to gender swap shrinking Ray's character from the comic to the series because, I mean, this dynamic they got over here is so much more impactful and it just adds to their characters. I loved every second of it, and it makes Rex's death at least a little bit more impactful for you. I mean, it actually added some more weight to that Invincible War arc. But a lot of the season has been taking into account the fact that Mark causes a lot of damage. Of course, it's not his fault, but he's involved in so much that, of course, a lot of people, a lot of cities are gonna get leveled because in fights with the Viltrumites, it's just a complete mess, and we're still facing repercussions from the past seasons as well. Characters like Powerplex make sense. This is like the series' own brand of like a Billy Butcher kind of character. Someone that can't forgive a hero, but in this case, instead of Homelander, because Homelander's a piece of shit and he's one of the worst people that ever can exist, over here, Invincible is someone that was just trying to do good, but his face was used as a weapon. So now people like to blame him. With Powerplex's presence, we finally see Mark get a little bit more conscious of the fact of what he's been doing, the lives, the weight that he actually has to carry on his shoulders. It's rough for this guy. I mean, he should be in college right now. He doesn't have all the answers for everything, but he can try his absolute best. It's just sometimes his best isn't enough for some people. This episode does the best use of the title drop sequence that we've seen so far. I love it when the series gets a little bit more meta like this, because last season we got that whole little breach with the animation, talking about how the studios use still images where it distracts away from the character's mouth so that you don't have to animate as much. That meta stuff just gets me a little bit, so hearing Aaron Paul scream out Invincible's name several times over, yeah, I like that too. And I feel just like how we got a Glen Negan 2.0 over here, we also have like a Jesse Pinkman over here with his girlfriend. I mean, those two character designs look identical. From what we saw in the Invincible arc in the show, it was done much better than what I've seen in the comic book. I mean, it actually gave a bit more characterization to all these Invincible variants. We got a little bit more out of them in terms of what they say, in terms of what they do. Some of these marks aren't even completely full-on evil. They're just here for one purpose or another, whether it be maybe to get their mother back, or William, as a matter of fact. That's a different kind of mark right there. Angstrom enticed all of them for different reasons, and with all the damage that they caused, they really did do some damage to Invincible's reputation at large. This and then the final episode are the two things that really push Mark to his absolute limit and actually make him do a full-on 180 change in terms of how he wants to deal with villains that actually want to hurt him and his family. Because that's what we finally end up seeing with the last episode with Conquest. This is a fight with someone that you cannot reason with. This is a guy that is so far gone that he doesn't even understand the concept of mercy anymore. The things that they have done when Conquest in the show are phenomenal. They make this guy horror movie material. The second that this guy starts trauma dumping to Mark and starts to say that he is so lonely, I felt fear for Mark in that second, because this guy is, as he just says in his own speech over here, unstable. All the other Viltrumites are afraid of him because they know of what he can do. This guy, Conquest, didn't have this monologue in the original comic book. This is all show original, and this greatly builds on his character to reflect on the fact that he doesn't even see himself as a person at that point. Everyone in that whole empire sees this guy as a weapon, as a tool for conquest. Out of all the special guest voice actors that we've seen, I think Jeffrey D. Morgan Mark is just the creme de la creme. He is the best voice that we have heard so far. I mean, Powerplex, I give it up to you, but I know, Aaron Paul, you can do a little bit better over here. I know you can do a little better because I watched BoJack Horseman and you voiced Todd in that. I gotta say, sometimes it did feel a little bit forced in that Powerplex episode. A little bit, not too much. But Conquest was on his way to not just toy and play around with Mark, he was on his way to kill Oliver like snapping a twig, and he was just ready to just break Eve whenever. I mean, you can even say that he probably got it to the point of actually dying, because that's when she went and finally unlocked those little points in her power that caused her to actually activate her regeneration ability, effectively showing us that this girl is practically immortal, which is something that is incredibly important in this series, because with how much damage that's always being dealt with Mark, I mean, of course, he needs to find someone that is able to take just as much damage, and also someone that he could just relate to at the end of the day. Mark ending up with Eve is probably the best thing that could happen, and they both did a pretty great job fighting against Conquest over here, because I mean, goddamn, you saw just how bloody, just how vicious this fight got. Mark didn't have an arm and he didn't have a leg, and he still managed to win in this fight because, you know, just full-on willpower is what carried him across that finish line. Using his own head to crush Conquest's face in was, I gotta say, one of the best things that I've seen in Invincible so far. Mark's rage is felt so insanely well. The way that Stephen Young said his iconic line of being able to see the future and that Conquest wasn't gonna be able to make it past today, it's great over here. Stephen Young has always done great work when portraying Invincible, and this is just another example of that. And by the end of the episode, Mark has finally accepted things and has agreed with Oliver in terms of wanting to now kill villains that are actually going to be a threat. A little bit of a scary spin right there, especially since we saw how some villains aren't always necessarily evil like Conquest, you know, evil for the sake of being evil. There's other villains that do this because, you know, they need to survive. There's an entire sequence in one of the earlier episodes looking at these two villains' lives who tried to live like normal people, but were unable to because of criminal backgrounds or because the opportunity wasn't given to them. So they had to resort to things like robbing banks because that's the only thing that they knew and the only thing that they were allowed to do. Fantastic. I mean, again, the series dives into so many different topics, so many different themes that, again, a lot of other series and a lot of other things aren't really going to talk about. And when we're seeing things like at the very end of the episode, when that incredible 9 Inch Nails song comes in, oh, by the way, the music in the series is also phenomenal. The second that songs from Radiohead or 9 Inch Nails, like Every Day Is the Same, start to play, I'm glued to my seat and I want to see what's coming up next. And these forewords for what we're going to see in the future seasons just make me think, how are they going to finish this in 8 seasons? There's so many different plot points and storylines that all have to come together still that make me afraid that I'm not going to be able to make it to the end of everything. I want to see this entire thing get adapted as soon as possible. And I know as soon as possible is going to be every single year. I might be in my 30s by the time that this series ends, and that's a scary thought. But no matter, as long as these seasons keep being rolled out, I'm still going to be sat whenever they come out. And here is where I gotta turn it back to y'all. What did you guys think about this season of Invincible? I mean, I think this is incredible. I think this is better than season 2. This brought me all the way back then, and I'm hyped to see even more of this show, even though it's not gonna be until early 2026 that we get a little bit more of it. But what did you guys think? Do you love it just as much as I do, or were you disappointed? Are you like an IGN reviewer? Please let me know down in the comments below. And as always, I was Randy, and I'll be seeing y'all next time. Peace.